a plethora of human bones.
Oh my God.
Julie's lawyer, Bill Wendling, who she had called, watched the police scoop up one chipped and broken bone after another. Then he himself looked down at his own feet and noticed, sticking out from the ground around him, were even more pieces of bone.
What the fuck?
At one point, he leaned over to pick up what were obviously human teeth. There were bones and pieces of bodies everywhere. They were standing in a mass grave. Gross, right?
No, I don't like that.
There's a bit in this where it's like some of the bones as well were found in an area of the garden where the kids would regularly play as well. So like he literally like dug up areas of the ground and obviously buried the bodies everywhere. It gets even worse as well. These bones are fucking everywhere. Julie grew anxious about the safety of her son Eric, who was actually with Herbert at the time. So she actually had a county judge draw up a custody papers to remove the body. To remove the boy from his dad's presence.
Yeah.
Herbert had no idea what was going on at home because no one had obviously. There weren't really cell phones, mobile phones back then. This is early 90s. No one apart from fucking
Zach Morris.
Zach Morris, yeah. No one apart from fucking Zach Morris had mobile phones. So yeah, he had no idea what was going on, and when the police showed up about the kid, he just thought it was some stupid sort of custody thing about the divorce, some weird divorce strategy or something. So we just let him go without problem. He was like, good. Yeah, that's fine. Good. Just take the kid. This is all bullshit. Just my wife being a bitch. Mm-hmm. So he's out of the way. Back at the house, however, plenty was happening, and the pieces of the puzzle were quickly coming together. Compost piles yielded heavy degrees of bones where it appeared the killer had burned his corpses under piles of leaves and garbage. A big question they had, though, was how could Herbert have strangled and burned and buried these men without his family's knowledge?
I was actually just thinking that just then. How the hell could he do that?
Well, we briefly mentioned this in part one, but Julie herself had the explanation. For several months at a time, especially the summers, Julie would take the kids to see their grandmother, leaving Herbert alone at home.
Okay.
After a little detective work, the times of the victims' disappearances and the times Julie and the kids went away matched perfectly.
Oh.
At this point, the number of people digging up in the yard had increased to about 60 volunteers. I mean, we saw that picture, and the fucking land is huge. Yeah. Huge.
We need quite a lot of people doing that.
Yeah. Mostly they were consisting of off-duty policemen and firemen. The first couple of days, the search had produced around 5,500 pieces of bones and teeth, which apparently made up about 4 bodies, which sounds like a lot of bones and bits of body.
Wasn't it shattered, though? So
I think so,
broke,
yeah. So they were broken up into smaller pieces. After they had combed the entire 18 acres of the property, members of the team were soon to learn that their search was far from over. So even after the 18 acres, still more to come.
Oh.
So he was just throwing these bodies all over the show. Neighbours from an adjacent farm walked over to inform the police that they had actually found evidence of yet more bones on their property.
What?
So he's being very risky putting bones on some other people's property. The neighbours led investigators to an area cut through with a drainage ditch that separated the two properties, and it was in this ditch they found more piles of human ribs, vertebrae and spinal cords.
Jesus Christ.
This is gross. I mean, I'm so glad that we didn't go into any of the grisly, gruesome details of how these people died, because it just sounds like this is crazy.
Brutal.
Like, this is a lot of shit that's gone on. The bones were so numerous and more intact than on Herbert's land. So these were more. I don't know why. Maybe he took more care in disposing of them on his own property, whereas on the other ones, he just thought, fuck it, no one's going to find these. Maybe? I don't know. On the other land, on the neighbour's land, they actually stuck up visibly from the mud, and the bones were sort of visible as to what they were. So before they thought, on his, they thought they were like little shattered bits of pebbles and stuff, but this is like, these are fucking big spinal columns sticking out of the fucking mud.
Jesus Christ.
Shovels drew up not only more bones, but with them cans of Miller Genuine Draft Beer, which was Herbert's favourite drink. And also handcuffs. Which, why would you leave beer cans? Beer cans in the garden as well? That's just not environmentally friendly. They are not biodegradable.
And bones are?
I don't know, actually. Are bones biodegradable?
No, they're not.
No, they're not.
That's why they stay in the ground.
Oh.
Forever.
Oh, forever and ever? Oh, man. Okay, fair enough. By the time exhumation of this particular area ended, 150 more bones were estimated as those belonging to another 7 men. The mortal count had risen to estimated 11 men killed at this point. 11, wow. That's a lot.
That is a lot.
That's a lot of people. Fuck.
Oh my God.
11. Ugh. The question is, though, where was Herbert Baumeister? Where do you think he is, Alan?
Canada.
Well, on June 29th, detectives received a phone call from Brad Baumeister, Herbert's brother. Brad told the policeman that his brother had phoned him from the little Michigan town of Fenville, saying he was on a business trip and needed money quickly. After Brad sent the cash, he then became aware of the goings-on at Fox Hollow Farm and then notified the authorities immediately. After this, a couple of weeks pass, and Brad once again receives a phone call from Herbert asking for more money. By this time, Brad had obviously spoken to detectives, like I say, and they had asked him to tell Herbert just to check in with the police, because they just wanted to talk to him. Which, I don't know. Yeah. I guess maybe it's worth a shot. If you don't know where the fuck he is, it's not going to hurt to try.
Yeah,
right?
It's true.
So, it's this call. It seems like this has apparently spooked Herbert. And it's at this point he now enters Canada. You're right. He goes Canada. Ontario Provincial Police told the Indianapolis Star that they believed Herbert arrived in Sarnia on June 30th. He apparently spent several days there before driving east along the Lake Huron shoreline to Grand Bend, Ontario. I'm definitely pronouncing a lot of these locations very wrong.
Probably.
A Canadian trooper reported that on July 2nd they'd stopped a man fitting Herbert's description. The man was sleeping in his car underneath a bridge. When the trooper asked what the man was doing, he told her that he was just a tourist passing through and was grabbing a moment's rest. A reasonable explanation, so no further action was taken at this point. It's also noted that the trooper had noticed a pile of videotapes in the man's back seat. Were these videotapes of the murders at Fox Hollow Farms? Question mark.
Oh.
The evening following this, on July 3rd, 1996, the body of a 49-year-old man was found at Pinary Park, Canada. A Magnum revolver lay nearby on the ground. Further examination proved that the gun had been placed to the man's temple before the bullet was fired. Once it was, the bullet fractured his skull, piercing his brain and killing him almost instantly. Gunpowder residue on his hands would prove that the man had pulled the trigger himself. Herbert Baumeister had taken his final life.
What?
His own.
Oh my God.
Did you think that's how...
No, I actually thought it was going to go on like a rampage and start killing people and stuff.
Well, that, my friends, is the story of Herbert Richard Baumeister, a.k.a. the I-70 Strangler.
What? That still feels like a cliffhanger to me.
Okay, because it kind of is. I ended it there because that's kind of where the main... That's because it's a dramatic ending. But that's at that point there is where the police investigation stopped. Okay. But Virgil carries on because he still feels something is fishy. He feels, and he does say later on that had he been more in charge of the investigation or was allowed more, he would have tied up more loose ends. He thinks there was some things there that were a little fishy, that weren't quite sealed off. Now, one of the things that we've mentioned is that this guy is called the I-70 Strangler. Yes, but so far there has been no mention of the I-70 freeway or highway. But Virgil, being the badass private investigator he is, this is where, even after Herbert's death, puts some pieces together. So, here's the deal. Here's the dildo. Early in his investigations, Virgil had made connections between the disappearances of gay men in Indianapolis to the strangling murders of gay men whose bodies were found dumped along Interstate 70 in the state of Ohio.
Okay.
So, so he sees he's dealing with the things that are happening with Herbert in his town of Indianapolis, and then he realizes that there are some similarities with some other things that he remembers from a case in Ohio with these I-70 murders. So he teams up with an investigator from that particular area, because I'm assuming he probably needs someone with a little bit more knowledge of the local area and things.
Yeah.
So they team up together and they agree that there are very tight similarities. Also, after further investigation, they find that the last known I-70 murder had been committed not long before the Indianapolis disappearances began. So, I-70's going on, little bit, break, Indianapolis, begin. In fact, the roadside killings actually ended at exactly the same time as Herbert bought his house. Oh. So the house where he now had lots of room to dump the bodies with a lot less hassle than throwing them out on the freeway.
Yeah.
They also found that Herbert Baumeister had also made countless business trips to Ohio during the late 1980s, where all these other murders took place. Herbert's photo matched the police sketch that had been previously drawn from witness statements.
Oh my God.
Who said that they had seen the I-70 Strangler. One eyewitness was actually able to go in and was able to identify a picture of Herbert as exactly the same man who had driven his friend home from a bar one night in 1988. His friend was called Michael Riley, and he was found dead the next morning. So this guy, it's wow. Crazy. Not long after, representatives from the combined states of Ohio, Indiana, American people, Canadian people, everyone's just going to hate me for my geography. Representatives from combined Ohio and Indiana counties held a press conference to definitively link Herbert with the I-70 slayings. So even after Herbert was killed himself, Virgil carried on investigating, and found that he was actually the fucker who did these other things as well.
As if.
So before all of our little story started, Herbert had actually been fucking killing people as well. Crazy. But such good detective work from Virgil.
Yeah,
right?
definitely.
Such good work. Because now, not only that, but all those people who, the victims' families of
justice.
Yeah, they've got their
just not really justice.
Not really, because he's not in prison, but at least they've got that maybe a little closure, maybe a little helpful closure, knowing that whoever that was isn't still out there. But with the I-70 slayings together with the other killings, it brought Herbert's total number of victims combined to 16 men in total, with potentially more that were unfound. So it's a hell of a huge body count, right?
Definitely.
Huge. There is one other thing that I would like to mention as well, is that Virgil is still doing an investigation at the moment, as we speak.
About this?
No, not about this. This is game over.